Good morning, Les. How are you?
Great and grateful. What about you?
I am wonderful. I can't believe we're halfway through the week already.
I know, absolutely. This year is going so fast. I cannot believe it. It's unbelievable how fast it's going, but it can't end fast enough. I just hope that there's nothing like 2021. I hope there's nothing like 2020.
It's like a weird year because it's so going, but then it's going really fast. But you're like, just keep going so fast.
Right. Yes, it is. And the other thing is that some days I forget what day it is. I'm bored out. I think I'm looking forward to the end of this to get through this, and because there's so much that's happening back to back, we just don't know what shoe is going to drop next. So that's why mental resolve is the order of the day. All right.
Do you know there's a new saying? It's called "That's so 2020." Like if something goes wrong, you just say "That's so 2020."
Oh, that's the term now. Oh, that's
Okay.
2020. Absolutely, I'm start using that.
It's yours. You should claim it.
Yeah.
Hey, we have so many people. You and I were just guessing offline where people will be watching us from, and they are coming from all over. Let us know where you're watching us from. Oh, we just said we love the Canadians. There's always a lot of Canadians on here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I enjoy going to Canada speaking. Have great experiences there and great turnouts as well.
Well, let us know where you're watching from. This is our favorite part. Today, what are you going to talk about, Les?
I want to talk about the competitive edge, the power of communication, a superpower, and some examples of what I've witnessed and what I've experienced that makes it stand out. That is your superpower. And it's one that is worth putting your money where your mouth is. It's one that's worth getting coaching and training in that area because so much rides on that in terms of how people see you, your level of credibility, your ability to influence and impact them. All of that depends upon how well you're able to communicate.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get out of here. Start getting your questions in here because we're going to answer a couple questions once Les gives us all of his wisdom, and I'll be right back. I can't wait to hear.
All right. Thank you so very much. I want all of you to just listen with me for just a moment. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I want to share with you something that a conversation that I had with one of my children this morning. And what I'd like for you to do, I want you to write down the power to communicate, the power to communicate. It gives you an edge. One of my daughters had an experience with a firm, and when she went there, she showed up. She had her hair pulled back and she had a ponytail, and it was not a business meeting. She was going there as an advocate in behalf of someone. And the lady who was there came out and said, "Sit down," in a very rude way. And my daughter asked, "Are you talking to me?" And she said, "Yes, sit down." She said, "No. You need to correct yourself, you correct your attitude." And when my daughter spoke, this person was taken aback. Wow. She realized that she was not talking to a kid. She realized that she was talking to someone who knew why she was there and what she wanted to accomplish, and that she could not get away with that type of belligerent behavior. When Mr. Washington said to me, my high school teacher, "Mr. Brown, once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are." I remember being in the Ohio legislature, and the older guys would come to me and say, "Look, this is my legislation. I need you to speak in behalf of it. What I'll do is introduce it, and then I'll pass it to you saying, Mr. Brown will be my expert to explain what the legislation does." Now, why would they do that? These are veterans. Why would they bring that to me? And I was a new person because I knew how to communicate. I remember when I was preparing for running for the Ohio legislature, and Mike Williams, who's the author of the book called The Road to Your Best Self, he had me drill. They had various people who came to the Center for Contemporary Problems. And I don't know if you saw the movie Karate Kid. Hands on, no, wax on, wax off, all right? Wax on, wax off. Well, they started asking me a variety of questions like meet the press. And I couldn't understand why are they drilling me like this? And because this is my first time venturing in politics, I didn't know the preparation that was involved and that the process of communicating when you're running for office and when you are a radio personality, those are two different things. Your ability to communicate your position, your ability to tell the story about yourself, about your opponent, and your ability of your opponent talking about himself or herself and about you determines how people vote. And so I want to talk to you and give you some tips on what it means to be able to be effective in your communication and what will give you a competitive edge. Number one, be clear. A lot of people, I have a friend of mine, and I'm sure you've all had the experience of someone who called you and start talking and you don't know where the conversation is going. It's all over the place. And then they punctuate it by saying, you know what it means? You know what I mean? My twin brother does that. You know what I mean? No, Wesley, I don't know what you mean. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't know what you're saying. Why don't you just say it? I mean, that irritates me. That's crazy conversation. I don't like that. You're going to say something, say it. Don't ask me, you know what I'm saying, every 2 or 3 seconds, all right? I don't like that. And so, and he knows it, and he catches himself now when he does it because he knows that gets on my last nerve. This is a time, as you look at yourself, 50 million people have lost their jobs. As you look at yourself, the economy has flipped and people had the rug snatched out from under them. As you look at yourself, in order to be competitive, to find another job or find some partners or negotiate a better deal for yourself, you have to be an effective communicator. And part of that whole process, believe it or not, the time that you spend working on yourself. Why, Les? Because who you are behind the words are far more important than the words that you speak. A lot of people are not aware of that. There's the messenger and there's the message. So what I do when I'm working with speakers is first focus on the messenger. That as you look at yourself, look at your goals, what it is you want to achieve, spend some time every day working on yourself. Why? We're in a strange place. And in order to get through this place, in order to come out of here and be victorious and achieve the things that you want to achieve, there's a level of confidence, there's an air, there is a feeling of empowerment, there is a spell of driven behavior that consumes you, that allow people to respond to you in a certain way. I remember the first time that I spoke for Procter & Gamble, and they asked me, where's your PowerPoint, Mr. Brown? I said, I am the PowerPoint. And they said, oh, you got to work on you, your confidence, your attitude about yourself. They did a study of some 3,000 top achievers and entrepreneurs and leaders around the world, and they wanted to know what was the common denominator among them that allowed them to be able to reach their goals. Here's what they discovered. 85% of them reach their goals because of their attitude, your mindset. 15% because of their aptitude. So your mindset, when you are making a presentation, when you're trying to recruit somebody, when you're making a sale to make a point, your mindset is very important on how people respond to you because they can feel your energy. I remember when I had to introduce some legislation to oppose and amend a piece of legislation that I was vehemently opposed to. And so my strategy was to introduce some amendments that I knew that would be challenging for the sponsors of this legislation to move forward with it. But I wanted to make a point. And when I made my point, they had to sit and they had to think. They were convicted in their spirit. I didn't persuade them to change their vote, but they had to think, because I put together a clear, concise argument that could not be denied. And so when you are going to speak, you're working, first of all, on your mindset. Number one. Number two, you want to do your work. You want, if you, in fact, one of the things that allowed me to pass 14 bills my first term, and just to put this in context, a lot of people were there for years and never got one piece of legislation passed. And the reason why, I learned both sides of the argument. And I was able to collaborate across the aisle and get people to say, you know what, this is a good idea. And so when you look at yourself, look at your goals, and particularly in this environment, if you're serious about growing your career, if you're serious about getting people to invest in some idea of yours, or starting a new business, or attracting partners, or sharing your specialized knowledge, your ability to do that, it hangs on your ability to tell the story about your product, to tell the story about your company, to tell the story about the possibilities of what's involved and what you want to accomplish and what you're up to, and the movement that you're trying to enroll people in becoming a part of it. Here's something else. Your conviction. Even, I'll never forget, a friend of mine from the National Speakers Association, he said, Les Brown? I said, yes. He said, you're losing a lot of money. I said, how? He said, the telephone is your cash register. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, as you're talking to me right now, I noticed that when you take calls about your business, you have the same tone. He said, you can't afford that. He said, you've got to talk like you on that stage. That telephone is your microphone. That person who's hearing you, they've had to have enough emotional energy to go back and talk to the people in that committee and say, look, we got somebody to speak free. And that person got to have enough energy and conviction because they heard your voice and how you came through that phone and say, yeah, I know why they're free. Because they're not worth anything. I just talked to the man, and he is the one. He's the man that we need to bring in. And cost should not be a factor. We should be thinking about the experience and the impact that we want to make. He was right. My income increased by 65% because I don't have casual conversations. I don't even take a call unless it's positive, productive, profitable, and purposeful. And so you want to be mindful in your private conversations and in your public conversations, how you show up, because people judge you by that. They judge you when you open your mouth. They judge you by that. When my daughter spoke, who are you talking to? Are you talking to me? This lady had to back up. She said, this young lady here, she might be short and she has a ponytail, but dynamite come in small packages. I need to back up in here. This is not the one. Here's something else. I remember the first time I spoke at the National Speakers Association, and I was seated next to a guy who looked at the program and they saw my name. 3 guys on the right of me. And they started talking among themselves. And so I heard one of them say to the guy right immediately to my right, you asking. So guy leans over, are you a football player? No, I'm not. Do you play basketball? No, I don't. Now, I could have asked, why are you asking me this? But I knew why. Because he didn't know why I was there. That there must be something about me. I must be some athlete, the stereotypical mindset why I was at that table. And one of the speakers, one of the presenters, in fact, the main primary speaker that will speak on the platform. And so he said, "You're not a football player?" "No." "And you don't play basketball?" "No." "Why did they invite you to speak?" "Because every speaker in here would love to be able to be up there and speak today where you're going to speak. And this room is full of meeting planners and our peers. This is a special platform that's showcasing the speaker. You are not a celebrity. And you don't know why they're bringing you here." I said, "No, I don't. I knew why they brought me there." There was a gentleman who was one of the founders of the National Speakers Association, and he got lost in Atlanta. He was driving around, and he decided on that day to go to a Black church. I was speaking at Hillside, Dr. Barbara King, and he was near that church, came in and heard me speak, and he was blown away. And he introduced himself, and he said, "I'm one of the founders of the National Speakers Association. I'm going to nominate you for their highest award." He said, "Man, I never heard of you, but my God, you're a very good speaker." And so he nominated me to speak and nominated me for the CPAE award, the highest award that they give out. And since that time, I've not only won that, but the Golden Gavel Award from Toastmasters International, and selected among the top 5 speakers in the world. Now, I'm not saying this to impress you, but the power, the edge it gives you when you can communicate. And so when I spoke and got a standing ovation, and they were blown away. The other ones, the speakers they had in the past, they had athletes, basketball players, football players, but they never had a speaker who looked like me. I said to myself, I'm going to take them to school today. I'm going to get the butter from the duck today. Oh my God. When I came back and sat down at the table, as I was still getting like a 3 or 5 minute standing ovation, he looked over at me and said, "Now I know why they brought you here." And I was so humble. I said, "You're so kind. Thank you." Oh, behave. Whatever. Listen, when you speak, people are asking 3 questions. Who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? When you speak, be concise. When you speak, the best speakers make the fewest words go the farthest. When you speak, before you speak, do your research, develop as much working knowledge of that organization as possible. When you speak, learn how to tell your story in a way that will expand the mind and get them into their imagination and touch their heart, because people are basically emotional, and ignite their spirit, where they get fired up because they heard you say, "You know what? I heard this guy, and man, he was something else. He was talking to me." And so you use your stories in a concise, strategic way. The best speakers make the fewest words go the farthest. That will impact people, that will create an experience. And that's the name of the game, the selling experience, the customer service experience, the experience of enrolling people on some vision, some goal, some movement that you want to be a part of, that you want to recruit people and inspire them to join you. And so when they were preparing me for the Center for Contemporary Problems, I was aggravated, saying, "Why y'all asking me all these questions to myself?" I didn't challenge them, because when Mike Williams, my mentor, he said, "Brownie, you need this." As they drilled me in all these questions, when it's time for the debate for the 29th House District, I knew. The incumbent, he didn't go through that drill because he'd been the incumbent for 22 years. He'd beaten 3 other attorneys. And so he figured, this is nothing. I got this hands down. But when they started asking us questions and I started responding and he responded, and then I took his question and took it to another place, he knew he was in trouble and his voice started trembling and his lips were shaking. Your ability to communicate is very important. In this economy where the rug has been snatched out from people, in this economy where there are limited job opportunities, in this economy, your ability to attract investors, your ability to sell yourself and sell your ideas, or have people to write a check and say, you know what, I want to align myself with you. Your ability to do that is based upon how well you communicate. Put your money where your mouth is. How well you're able to relate to people, to connect with people. And so there's several things. There's a story that you tell about yourself. There is the energy behind your voice. There's the confidence in which you speak. That's why you have to continuously work on yourself so that when you speak, you're speaking from a place of authority. When you speak, I'll never forget, a major pharmaceutical company asked me, can you train doctors how to communicate with their patients to take their hypertension medication? I said, absolutely. And I looked at him and my look was, the only reason you were spared from birth control was to give me this contract. And I got it. $640,000 in 1 month. A lot of people don't earn that working for a whole year. I'm telling you what I know. And so you want to, and I want you to write this down, position yourself to win. You don't want to just run out in the marketplace and try and compete. No, no, no. You want to look at where is it you want to go? What is it you need to do to reinvent yourself? What are the tools that you need to sharpen? Abraham Lincoln said, if I have 6 hours to chop a tree down, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. You want to sharpen your mind so that you can ask questions, and you want to get coaching and help and assistance. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame, so that when you speak, people will listen. When you speak, they'll feel, I believe him. When you speak, they'll say, wow, this is impressive. Give yourself the competitive edge. Position yourself to win. Bet on you. Get the training that you need. Don't take it for granted. Oh, I got the gift for gab. Oh, I know how to talk. No, 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 no. Don't go by what people say to you who won't write you a check for what you say. Being judged by untrained eyes who won't write you a check for $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000, $50,000 for the words that come out of your mouth. I'm telling you what I've earned. And I can say to you, the best investment, the best training that I've gotten, people say, oh boy, you are natural. I remember spending a day with Maya Angelou. She said, I get angry when people tell me that I'm a natural communicator. She said, show me a natural heart surgeon. They are trained. I'm trained. I work at this. And ladies and gentlemen, I work at this. Even at 75, I work at this. I've drilled myself to memorize 3 to 4, 5 new quotes a day. Why? I love it. And it's the calling on my life. And if I don't practice, if I don't stay sharp, there's somebody somewhere who is practicing and staying sharp and on top of their game and ready to take me out when I slack up. I was doing an interview with one of the speakers that I've mentored, and I'm not going to tell you his name is Ruben West. But Ruben is so sharp. Oh my God. You talk about somebody who can come up with some nuggets. He is so brilliant. He's a strategic thinker. And he was, and I knew that he was going to be one of those that will track me down. One of those I could hear his footsteps right now, because of his work ethic, because he was a medical assistant working with doctors and giving them the instruments that they needed, and how he approached that and the level of service that he provided. And they saw him differently because of his level of detail and his professionalism and the standard that he held himself to. And I knew that he would bring that same behavior. People form habits, as Dr. Dennis Wakely would say. People form habits, and habits create futures. And I knew that he would bring those same habits to the speaking profession. And now Ruben has spoken all over the world. All over the world. Why? Because he holds himself to higher standards on how he communicates. Write this down. The best speakers are the best listeners. Listen. Listen to me, Linda. Listen. See, there are people who, I never forget when I was in high school. Oh, boy. Oh, my goodness. I just thought about this high school teacher of mine. Oh, boy, he can crack on you. And I mean, when he crack on you, you would just be so embarrassed. And Mr. Hayes, he said, didn't I tell y'all to shut up? And I was one of those that was still talking. He said, listen to me. Mr. Brown, Larry Little, you're suffering from diarrhea of the mouth and constipation of the brain. Woo! Everybody said, oh my God. Oh my God. Guess who shut up? Oh my God. You're suffering from diarrhea of the mouth and constipation of the brain. I'll never forget that. Oh my goodness. Oh, I got real quiet after that. I wouldn't even whisper in this class. I turned so red. I turned so red in the face, but nobody saw it. Oh man. This thing called communication, it humanizes you. When you don't know how to communicate, people judge you just like that. They disrespect you. You don't know how to communicate, they dismiss you. And later, she didn't dismiss my daughter. You know what my daughter said to me this morning? I thank you so much, Dad, for teaching us how to communicate. And they don't use profanity to communicate. I taught my kids, profanity is the strongest expression of a weak mind. Speak so that people will listen. I hope what I've shared with you has had some value. Listen, I'm doing this special program, this special study, and I want to work with a small number of people who are hungry, who want to learn how they can improve their communication skills and draw attention to themselves, create an experience with the communication, to hold the attention and to ignite, to direct the attention. If you're one of those people, I want you to put voice in the comments section. At this stage of my life, it's 75. I want to share with you the secrets that I've learned. It's intense. If you're ready to be stretched, if you want to become more effective in advancing your career, if you want to be more effective in building your multi-level marketing organization, if you want to be more effective in your sales and how you present yourself, if you want to increase your selling power, your presentation power, I want you to put voice in the comment section. You have something special. You have greatness in you. Put your money where your mouth is. Bet on you. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
That was so good. I want to jump in here. If you are on LinkedIn, question, we need you to go to lesbrownofficial.com to work with you, Les. And then on Facebook, put voice in the comments. Hey, Les, we've got a question for you. Ready for this question?
Yes.
Matthew says, when you were working on yourself, were you drafting your own keynote speeches or were you downloading scripts for practice?
When I was working on myself, I was just focused on that, listening to motivational messages. One, to get the gist of it, to understand what did that really mean? Self-development, self-awareness, self-approval, self-commitment. I wanted to study how could I come into a room and speak to a group of strangers and be able to transform their lives individually and collectively. And so I was working on my content. Mike Williams, who wrote the book, The Road to Your Best Stuff, he worked with me on the strategy of how to deliver the content to distract, dispute, and inspire how people live their lives as a result of the story they believe about themselves. So he taught me how to create an experience. In order to transform behavior, you have to create a significant emotional event. So he taught me how to distract people from their story, their current story that psychologists call their self-explanatory style. Through the execution of the presentation with the stories and the experience and the words and the info nuggets, you dismantle their current belief system and you ignite their spirit. And so it's a combination of working on my mind to believe in myself, because I don't have a college education. I never worked for a major corporation. I have to compete against people with PhDs and MBAs and all type of credentials that I don't have. And so I sat on the sideline for years, 14 years, thinking I wasn't good enough to compete. And I was wrong. I'm so glad that I was wrong. And I'm glad I got the coaching, because it helped me to increase my belief in myself and my skill set to be able to stand and hold an audience confidently and create an experience that will transform them. And if you go online and see Les Brown speaking in the Georgia Dome, you'll see me speaking before 80,000 people. It's called It's Not Over Till You Win. Another one is called It's Possible. And I tell a story about the bamboo tree. Your ability to tell a story and to bring an audience in and have them emotionally engaged in that story is major.
That's a good, the Georgia Dome one I've watched 1,000 times. You already know that. Last question, and I like this question because this is something you and I talked about early on. Heidi says, what are your thoughts on why when women speak greatness, yet they're still not heard? And can you kind of talk about how you work with women to try to do that? I kind of felt the same way, right? So kind of talk through that.
That's why I said we work first on the speaker, the messenger. That is not true that they're not heard because of their gender. No. When people speak, if you don't work on yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, the audience will pick that up. I don't care if you have PhD at the back of your name or the front of your name. And so some people figure, well, they're not going to listen to me because I'm a female. Well, guess what? You're right. And some people believe they will listen to me because I have something to say. You are both right. According to your faith, be it unto you. So I'm encouraging you to work on your mindset. Work on the messenger first. I cannot tell you the number of motivational messages that I've listened to. And in fact, I encourage you, if you email me at lesbrown77@gmail.com, I'm going to send you something to listen to. It will create a shift in how you see yourself and in your speaking. But I also encourage you to put voice in the comments section, because we work on the messenger and then the message, and teach you techniques and strategies and give you clear, tried and proven examples on how to present it. And if you talk to anybody that's in our program, they'll tell you how this has changed their lives. I'm teaching a class tonight, and the numbers grow every week. And I just take them behind the curtain and say, this is how you do this. And there are people say, well, I don't have a story. And I'll take several people from the group and go through their story with them. And when I finish, I ask them, has this been helpful to you? And they say, yes, it has. I got a story. Tears of joy, tears of celebration, and sometimes just shock, like, whoa. I was working with one friend of mine out in LA, and I'll never forget. And when I finished listening to her, I told her story, and she had on this gorgeous red dress, and she kicked her shoes off, and she said, you know what, Miss Lady? I said, what you call me? She said, you need to put this dress on because you told my story better than me. I said, I'm too big. But some things are taught, some things are caught. And I think the reason that I can go through and experience a person's story and pick it up and dissect it is because I learned best by hearing. And if you gave me a test right now, say, I need you to write me a speech, Les Brown, I can't do that. But if you give me some particulars, you give me some talking points, because I study all the time. T.D. Jakes talk about study full, and that's real. The reason I can pull these quotes up and have these stories and statistics and examples, because I'm studying. I'm 75 years young. I'm still working my mind. I'm still challenging myself. I'm a perpetual student. And as a result of that, my mother said, if you don't use it, you lose it. It takes longer to rust out than to wear out. And so to me, working on yourself, reading, to me, learning and listening and being coached and be a coach. I believe anybody who's coaching people, if they don't have a coach, you need to find a new coach. I have a coach, even though I'm recognized as #1 on the planet when it comes to speaking. I have a coach. Serena Williams, she has a coach. And she's the most dominant player in tennis. Tiger Woods, he has a coach. It's very important if you're serious. Now, this is not for everybody. If you talk about living a small life, a life of mediocrity, average, this is not for you. Go do it with somebody else who make their money off speakers. I get paid to speak. I get the Benjamins to speak. Me and my little kid and play hairstyle. I take you back to the 80s and still get paid to speak.
Look at this one. 75, you look 35.
Thank you. I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
All right, sir. Well, wrap us up.
Well, here's what I like to say to everybody. You deserve the best that life has to offer. This is a strange place where we are. And your mindset, how you see yourself coming through this victoriously, holding a vision of how you're going to grow through this experience and do the work that's necessary that will allow you to elevate your life to that level that you see for yourself. Don't focus on the things that have gone on, like you've lost your job. Okay, but you can't stay there, because you just sit around and talk about, I lost my job. You'll get depressed. You'll be overwhelmed if you're watching the television. You can't watch the television, as my daughter, Dr. Ona Brown, would say. You want to listen to things that are going to build your spirit and expand your vision. I didn't do what I'm doing now because I didn't have someone to tell me this. And I was suffering from possibility blindness. And I realized, and I was reading one day, a guy named Robert Root says, not what you don't have is what you think you need that keeps you from speaking. What you think you need that keeps you from stepping out of your head into your greatness and doing more. And I thought I needed a PhD or an MBA. No, I needed to believe in Les Brown. I needed to work on Les Brown. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and my skill as a communicator. I'm very aware privately and publicly how I communicate. Why? Because people form habits, and habits create futures. Dr. Dennis Waitley had a point. So I'm mindful of what I'm saying. People I hear often when I'm working with speakers, and they'll say, thing I'm talking about, excuse me. Here's what, let's get an understanding. Every time you say, you have to give me $10. Why? They did a study with people, and this presenter went before this audience, and he used just like everyone else will do, not thinking. And only 15% of the audience retained what he had to say. The other people started counting the ahs. Then he had to speak to another group of people, and he left out being mindful and deliberate. The ums. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And said what he meant, said what he was going to say, left the ums out. And over 90% was able to retain what he talked about. Over 90%. And people do it all the time. It's a lack of professionalism. It's a lack of knowing that people after the fifth or sixth they tune you out. They've got commercials as short as 10 seconds on the computer. 10 seconds. So people have a short attention span. You've got to get in, get out. You have to have info nuggets. You have to be concise. The best speakers make the fewest words go the farthest. And you've got to have energy and conviction in your voice that commands a committed listening. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye for now.